My first guest is a wrestler, and he's also the host of the podcast Nothing to Prove. It's Dom Vitalli, everybody. Dom, thank you for being here. We have not met, so I'm excited to say this will be our first intimate conversation.
Hopefully not our last.
Hopefully not our last. I appreciate that, man. So your moniker is Dom the Bomb Vitalli?
In some spaces, yes.
Okay, how do you earn such a nickname? Because I've been trying.
It's quite simple, actually. You find a word that rhymes with your name.
Oh, okay.
And it clicks, and people remember it.
So let's see. Russ, let's not go there.
Yeah.
Let's stop now. But you're a wrestler. You're a pro wrestler?
Yes.
In what venues would somebody find your wrestling matches?
Oh, you can find me pretty much all over the place. I've wrestled all over the country. I've wrestled for WWE a few times. Still do, on occasion, I do travel quite a bit. I'll be traveling to Las Vegas tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So constantly on the road. You can find my stuff on YouTube. I'm sure that's the kind of the way that, the kids are looking up things these days.
Sure.
Except for those movies that you have mentioned.
There are other search engines for those.
I got some suggestions.
But how does one get into wrestling? I mean, did you wrestle in high school and it was a passion? Or?
No, you know what? I never wrestled in high school. Like, my mom was kind of overprotective of me, so baseball was the only thing I could play.
Okay.
But when I was a little kid, I'd watch wrestling with my dad, and I was just infatuated with it. And I got to a point, when I was almost towards the end of my high school years, all my friends had grown out of it, except for me. I was the only one that still loved it, and I was like, you know what? Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be one of those guys on TV. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make it happen.
Wow.
And just through some hard work and some dedication and just trying to find every in and out that I could, I found a wrestling school. I found someone to train me the right way. And I graduated high school in June 2000, and by December of 2000, I was in the wrestling school getting beat up by bigger guys than me.
And loving every minute of it, right?
Yeah.
This is what I wanted!
Yeah. And at 130 pounds back then, it wasn't fun.
Oh, man.
But I was doing what I loved, and I always wanted to do, so it was cool.
That's amazing. So I'm sure a lot of young boys, and some girls too, probably watched that and thought, I'd love to do this someday. But you actually pursued it to the point of career.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until years and years later, that's kind of one of the mindset that I had. Like, if I want something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen in some way, shape, or form. I just thought I was a stubborn, hard-headed kid back then, and you couldn't tell me what to do.
Sure.
And I think there was also a point in my life where it was more of a, I'm going to prove you wrong type thing.
Right.
And now it's it's goals for me. Like, whatever I want, I'm going to achieve it. Not to shove it in your face, or not to just say I told you so, but for me, like, it's something I want to do. I'm going to make it happen.
Sure. And so you're probably one of those, I'm all in, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
So when you were first walking out, that first match, and you were hearing the roar of the crowd, and you saw your opponent, was there fear? Was there doubt?
Yeah, because there was no roar of the crowd, because they had no idea who I was.
Sure, right.
So that was really scary. But I was in good hands. My first match was against one of the guys that actually trained me from day one.
Okay.
So there was some area of comfortability. That's a word.
You knew what he was capable of.
Yeah, and I knew he'd take care of me, and I knew I was safe for the most part, even though he was probably twice my size and kind of threw me around the whole time. But it was really cool. Just you go out that curtain and you're kind of like, this is it. Like, this is what I've always wanted to do, and I'm actually doing it now. And don't fall on your face, and maybe you can do it again.
Did you win or?
Oh no, I got beat up pretty bad.
So what do you remember the first win?
No, I don't. And it's odd, because for me, and like I said, I've been wrestling for 16 years.
Wow.
And I have a pretty good name notoriety behind me, and I've been all over the place, and I've wrestled some of the greatest wrestlers in the world. I have a really good relationship with a lot of guys you see on TV now, and some of the greatest of all time. And I never really kept track of the win-loss record either, but I really would say that more often than not, I've probably lost more matches than I've won, but it's not hindered my progress. It's not hindered my ability to do what I do. It's not affected people wanting to pay to see me. I think I lose very good.
I wonder if that lesson could be learned in other strata of American society, experience, and politics. Every loss is a lesson, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I got to assume you walk away with, okay, next time I got to do this.
Yeah, it's a learning experience. You can't win them all, but to me, it's especially with something like wrestling. you get this winner and loser tags, for the most part. But if I can be a loser the majority of the time, yet still people want to put down their hard-earned money to watch me do what I do, I must be doing something right. I must be connecting
Absolutely.
with the audience. So yeah, I'll take it.
Folks generally have the perception of wrestling as theater. I mean, this question must come up for you a lot. And I know the era that you were a fan of. I had a lot of friends that were a fan of that as well. Hulk Hogan is the name that comes to mind the most. How accurate or not so is that to what actually happens in the ring and the sport around it?
It's 2017. The cat's out of the bag. Everyone knows that there is some level of predetermination to the outcomes of the matches in wrestling, but the physical aspect is 100% real.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that. We're literally risking our lives every single time that we go into the ring. There's chance of death. There's chance of paralysis. There's chance of serious injury. All of which have happened in a professional wrestling ring. And people like to throw the term around fake a lot, and to me that's a very offensive term for what I do, because to me it's my life, it's my livelihood, it's what I've loved for 33 years of my 35 years on this planet, and I've invested a lot of time and effort and blood and sweat and tears, and that's cliche, but that's for real. I've invested all of that in it, and to say that what I've done is fake is a slap in the face to me. Is it predetermined? Yes, absolutely. Do I get punched in the face for real? Yeah, I actually do. That's a misconception. People think, oh, it's that fake wrestling, they're fake punching. Well, you pull punches at times, but there are plenty of times where you get punched in the face.
Sure.
You get kicked in the nuts.
Wow.
It's very, very real, and I've been fortunate over 16 years to not suffer too serious of an injury. I've had a couple knee injuries that have been not no time off.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was the worst one where you were like, oh, I gotta take a break?
There was one time I miscalculated. I was going to do a backflip onto somebody from the top rope or the second rope, and I miscalculated the distance, and I landed knee first on them.
Ooh.
And I dislocated my kneecap.
Wow.
And I still had 10 minutes left of the match to finish.
Jeez.
And in wrestling, you can't. There's no timeout. There's no, let's stop it right now. You have to go. And we had 10 more minutes left, and I was essentially wrestling on one leg for the rest of that 10 minutes.
Wow.
And then we had a show the next day, 6 hours away. So it's 6 hours in the car.
Ice.
20-minute match. Ice bath, the whole thing. And then by the time that weekend's over, your knee's out to here, but you do what you love and you do what you got to do, because like I said, the show goes on and people pay hard-earned money to see you, and you don't want to disappoint them.
Sure. And what about the popularity of wrestling? Like that era that we grew up with when you were watching. I mean, it was a prime time event, and I know there are a lot of big pay-per-view events now. I guess The Rock and John Cena would be this generation's Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant, right? But is that popularity still there? Is the buzz?
To an extent, yes, and also to an extent, no. It's not as mainstream popular as it has been in the past. Guys and girls in the wrestling business aren't making as much money as they were in those times. But to me, and this is a philosophy that I've had, it all comes down to that believability factor. Yes, again, the cat's out of the bag. People know it's predetermined, but it's our job to suspend the audience's disbelief for however long it is that they're watching.
Sure.
So my goal as a wrestler is, you can come watch me do my thing, and you come to a show that I'm on, and you can say all the rest of the stuff you're seeing is bullshit. But when you watch me wrestle, you're gonna be like, all that other stuff was phony, but that Dom guy, I think he was really pissed at that other guy beat the shit out of him.
Right.
And that makes people more interested. Like MMA is a thing now. UFC, that's the new wrestling.
Sure.
Everyone wants to see that.
And it all came from the WWF when we were kids.
Yeah, and the UFC's super popular right now, and I really do believe that they'd be even more popular if half the guys had a personality, like a professional wrestler. They're just sticks in the mud, they're just guys, but they have personality behind them, and we got a chance to see who these guys really were and how they interact with each other and how they talk shit, like a Conor McGregor.
Right.
People give a shit about Conor McGregor because he talks shit.
Yeah.
They don't care about the other guy who's silent, and he may be a fucking killer, but no one cares about that guy because he's boring.
Yeah, because there are dozens, if not hundreds, of those fighters, but we really only know the names of Conor and Ronda Rousey. I mean, as a person that doesn't watch those matches regularly, those are the two names I know.
You gotta give the people a reason to want to watch you.
Sure.
Whether it's wrestling or whether it's MMA or people know the most famous athletes because they have a personality. Like LeBron James, you see him on TV all the time.
Right. Kobe.
If he was boring as shit, no one would care about LeBron James.
So you hear that? You want to be basketball players? Just cheat on your wife, and before you know it, that was Kobe. But thank you. Let's make a stand here on Phoenix Tonight. Adultery is the golden road to success.
That was your suggestion, not mine.
The opinions expressed on Phoenix Tonight do not reflect the guests' opinions or worldviews. But Ronda Rousey, I did catch, at least like a best of her last 16 seconds, I think, in the ring. And how do you, what do you think of her success and her subsequent defeats? I mean, she looked gorgeous on the cover of that Body issue and became basically a household name a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And do you think the celebrity just got to her head and prevented these wins? Or?
I've been really hard on Ronda Rousey over the past couple of years. I talk about her quite a bit on my show whenever she's about to fight.
Sure.
And now, full disclosure, Ronda Rousey would beat the shit out of me in any form.
Well, and us all,
Wrestling
I
ring,
think.
octagon, back alley year, doesn't matter.
Sure.
She'd kill me.
Yeah.
Let's make that very clear.
And Ronda, we know this. That's why they know.
So I don't take anything away from her athletic ability. I really don't, and her skill. But to me, it seems like she was dubbed the queen far too early. The women's MMA did not have enough of a lineage to be considered the greatest ever.
Right.
How can you be the greatest ever when your sport is like 3 years old?
Right. Like the WNBA. Basically, a lot of women's alternative sports are like that.
And I'm sure like the women have been fighting longer than 3 years, and I say that in jest. But there wasn't enough proof, there wasn't enough competition to say you're the best ever. And it may have got to her head. I don't think it did. I think the competition was just that much better. We just didn't know who they were because they didn't look good on a cover of a magazine. We didn't see them.
Sure.
She's very marketable. And the fights that she had were dominant and they were quick. And that sparked people's interest too.
I got to tell you, whoever her last opponent was, and this is probably somebody at least professionally by reputation, when I saw the billboard driving around for the pay-per-view, I was like, that woman is a monster.
Yeah.
She just looks ready to tear Ronda's head off. And Ronda, it was basically, in comparison, it was just like this. I mean, she looked like, and then you watch the match, and of course, it's so brief. You get that idea.
I don't do good with poor sports, and Ronda Rousey struck me as a very poor sport. Couldn't lose well, and just tried to pick unnecessary fights with her opponents. With the Holly Holm and picking a fight with her at the weigh-in and stuff unnecessarily. I didn't like that, so I don't get behind people like that.
And do you think that she's basically just going to become a Hollywood personality now? Is she going to fight again?
If she's smart, she will. No one wants to get the shit kicked out of them for a living except for me. Wrestling and MMA are very similar, but they're very different. Those MMA people, whether they're female or male, there's a very physical aspect to that. You can only do that for so long.
Sure.
Ideally, the smart people use these physical areas of entertainment that they're doing to bring it to a different area of entertainment.
Sure, they're kind of seeding a future. Yeah, exactly. They're seeding a future career.
And she's been doing that since the beginning. I think once she started getting some name notoriety, she started going down that route, and good on her. And it's smart of her.
Sure.
Put your body at risk like that. You're gonna get seriously hurt, or you can go make twice as much money being a super movie star.
Right, being like in the Expendable 7 or something like that.
Yeah, as long as you like what you're doing, do it.
Sure. The alternative is what we saw in that movie, The Wrestler, where you have a bunch of retired wrestlers basically in like a high school gymnasium in a very small kind of Comic-Con like setting, meeting fans and stuff like that. What are your long-term goals in the career? I would assume it's not one of those two avenues. So what's the third?
I know that I can't wrestle forever. I'm 35 years old. I've been doing this for 16 years. I know my opportunity for WWE is probably past me. I've had a couple chances and it just hasn't worked out, which I'm totally fine with. But one thing I've always been able to do since I've started wrestling was talk. I could always talk shit. And even in school, when I was younger, I had bigger friends, so they protect me while I talk shit.
Sure.
So I thought to myself before, I was like, how can I use that as a springboard to the next step? Because the body's not going to hold up forever. I know that. So that's how I got into the podcasting thing.
Oh yeah.
Just using my voice. I felt there was an area where my voice needed to be heard. So I'm kind of going that route as well. I'm just trying to use my notoriety from wrestling to expand into some different areas like podcasting, doing some life coaching things, some motivational speaking, which I've been doing for quite a few years in schools. I just had my first 2 talks actually for professional business in front of adults, which was fun.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, just trying to spread a positive message to people and kind of share my experiences as best as I can.
That's great. The podcast is called Nothing to Prove. It's at nothingtoprovepodcast.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I listened to an episode, and yeah, that motivational element was strong. Even more prevalent than your commentary on wrestling. You really, in that particular episode anyway, you were very motivational, no bull, to the point, believe in yourself kind of stuff, but also like get off your duff and get to work.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When I started the show, I didn't want it to be a wrestling podcast because not everyone's a wrestling fan, and I get that. So these days, I don't really talk too much about wrestling. If I do, it's socially relevant, and I make it so the listener can actually understand what I'm talking about, even if they've never watched an episode of wrestling in their entire life.
Sure.
It's few and far between right now, but usually what I like to do is just talk current events, kind of give my commentary on it. But the show always ends with some words of wisdom, and that's the positive message for the week. Whatever it is, we just pick a topic and I just kind of go off on it, and it's usually revolving around self-improvement or achieving goals or positive mental attitude, something like that. And people, they do need to hear those type of things. Everyone wants to do good in life.
Oh yeah.
I firmly believe that. But a lot of people don't have the roadmap, and I have the roadmap, and I've driven the road. And that's what I offer every week, is to give that to them. And it's up to them to get behind the wheel and take control.
Well, since your worldview is a little broader than just wrestling, when you look at obviously our country right now and how divided things are, I think the episode I listened to is on the heels of the inauguration. So you had a lot of political commentary. We don't have to get too deeply into it, but you're no nonsense kind of guy. So when you look at the divisiveness of America right now, do you see a path toward unity? Do you see a way people can come together and, despite having different opinions, at least be able to stand alongside one another without hitting each other in the face?
There's always hope. I really do believe that. But here's the thing: negativity is so easy. Everyone likes to be negative. Everyone likes to fight. Everyone likes to bicker. Everyone likes to argue. Nobody likes to listen. That's the difference. We need to start listening to each other. I do feel that there is an area that we can come together in, but it's going to take work on both parts. And that's kind of why I changed the message of the show right around the election time. I don't care who anyone voted for; it has nothing to do with it, but just the overall mentality of people was really taking a nosedive. And that's when I said, I got to do something that I can actually do. I can't either change the election if I wanted, if that's what I wanted. But what I can do is put out a message every single week that people can apply to their life to make not only their lives better, but the lives of the people around them better. And that's what I'm just doing my part. I'm going to the schools, I want to talk to the kids. I'm going to these businesses and talking to people how to not only be successful in their profession, but be successful outside of their job in life. So I'm just going to do my part, whatever I can, and that's all I can worry about. It's up to everyone else to do their part.
You're talking about consistency of character. That's what you're talking about.
That's all it comes down to.
Wow.
Put the work in, and the results will come.
Well, once again, that's nothingtoprovepodcast.com. Dom, it was great to have you here, man.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you. Dom Vitalli. Dom the Bomb Vitalli, everybody.